is on hold. Flights have been cancelled. Traveling is challenging. Schools are closed. Children have been forced to study at home.
5, 6.
And borders are closed. But our eucalyptus trees continue to grow. Seedlings continue to be planted. Plantation continues to provide oxygen to the air. And essential products are being shipped to the people who need them. So whether people are out at work or adapting to the new normal at home, we're still here, improving lives for our community and our country.
The Kampar Peninsula, Sumatra. One of the largest intact peat forests in Southeast Asia. This is a critical ecosystem that breathes life and water into the surrounding landscape. But in the 21st century, nature needs help to survive.
Our biggest threats are illegal logging, unwanted land claims or encroachment, and if that happens, then fire.
That's where Restorasi Ecosystem Real comes in. A dedicated team of rangers, scientists, and forest managers. Their mission? Restore 150,000 hectares of degraded peatland, an area the size of London, and protect the forest from misuse.
Jangan sampai ada kebakaran. Paling penting di area kita adalah jangan sampai ada api. Setiap hari sampai habis, bagaimana besok?
The rangers of RER work in partnership with the fishermen and community that call this home.
Oh, much.
Hantam buaya itu. Panggil buaya ini menghantam pengiler di seberang.
Smart. Very smart.
And slowly, the forest is revealing its secrets.
You look at this is a claw mark of sun bear. It's triangular shape. Perhaps this bear is trying to get into the fruit.
Rare and endangered species adapted to this remarkable world. Restorasi Ecosystem Real is a high-stakes commitment to save a forest.
If we weren't here, this place would be under attack. It would be degrading fast. But because we're here,
Hey! Ranger.
it's not.
This is Frontier Sumatra.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take a seat as we're about to start our event today. Kan mau nyuruh ini, kedengeran nggak? Kan buat nyuruh pada duduk, nyuruh duduk. start today's event.
Around the world, life is on hold.
Thank you very much for joining us today at Tanato Foundation's impressive SDG Academy. This is a milestone announcement from April. Thank you very much for joining us today. We're about to start in a few minutes.
Seedlings continue to be planted. Plantation continues to provide oxygen to the air. And essential products are being shipped to the people who need them. So whether people are out at work or adapting to the new normal at home, we're still here, improving lives for our community and our country.
The Kampar Peninsula, Sumatra. One of the largest intact peat forests in Southeast Asia. This is a critical ecosystem that breathes life and water into the surrounding landscape. But in the 21st century, nature needs help to survive.
Our biggest threats are illegal logging, unwanted land claims or encroachment, and if that happens, then fire.
That's where Restorasi Ecosystem Riau comes in. A dedicated team of rangers, scientists, and forest managers. Their mission? Restore 150,000 hectares of degraded peatland, an area the size of London, and protect the forest from misuse.
Jangan sampai ada kebakaran. Paling penting di area kita adalah jangan sampai ada api.
Setiap hari sampai habis, bagaimana besok?
The rangers of RER work in partnership with the fishermen and community that call this home.
Oh, much.
Situ ada
Much.
hantam buaya itu. Paling kali buaya ini menghantam pengiler di seberang.
Smart. Very smart.
And slowly, the forest is revealing its secrets.
If you look at this is a claw mark of sun bear. It's triangular shape. Perhaps this bear is trying to get into the fruit.
Rare and endangered species adapted to this remarkable world. Restorasi Ecosystem Riau is a high-stakes commitment to save a forest.
If we weren't here, this place would be under attack. It would be degrading fast. But because we're here,
Hey! Ranger.
it's not.
This is Frontier Sumatra.
and welcome Coordinating Minister of Economic Affairs, Minister Airlangga Hartarto, Secretary General, Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Pak Bambang Hendroyono, former Minister Ibu Erna Witoelar, former Executive Director of United Nations for Environment Program and former Minister of Environment and Development of Norway, Mr. Erik Solheim, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, assembled here at Tanoto Foundation's impressive SDG Academy, and for all of you joining us today virtually from wherever you are, we hope you are all safe and well. I'm Alin Bratmaja, and it's a great pleasure for me to be the host of this monumental moment, the launch of April 2030, April's new commitment to positive impact on climate, nature, and people by 2030. Over the next hour or so, we'll hear more about these commitments and how April is going to deliver on them. And here's a brief video for us to watch together as a start.
Of decisive action for climate, nature, and people, the global community is coming together to respond to this crucial challenge. And Indonesia is playing a pivotal role. APRIL Group, a leading producer of bio-based renewable products, is taking an active part in this global movement. This is April 2030. April 2030 is our vision for meeting the challenges of the next decade and is comprised of 4 commitment areas with 18 ambitious time-bound targets.
April 2030 is our commitment to deliver a positive impact on climate, nature, and people while growing as a sustainable producer of fiber and pulp-based products. By 2030, we will achieve net zero carbon emissions from all our land use, positive and measurable gains in nature, and zero extreme poverty in our communities, and positioning our business for sustainable growth for the next 10 years.
The 4 commitments of April 2030 are climate positive, thriving landscapes, inclusive progress, and sustainable growth.
The launch of April 2030 signals our next level of ambition for our sustainable development agenda.
We are very much aware that as a global community, we need to achieve the sustainable development goals while also finding ways to drastically reduce our carbon emissions and to significantly advance the protection of nature.
Our aim for April 2030 is to being part of the global movement for a more sustainable economy.
So what about our actual targets? When it comes to a climate-positive future, over the next 10 years, we will achieve net zero emissions from land use and reduce product carbon emissions intensity by 25%. We are dedicated to conserving and protecting our landscapes. That is why we will invest to achieve positive biodiversity gains and support wildlife protection. And to continue making advances in tropical peatland science, which will promote the responsible management of tropical peatlands.
We want to eliminate extreme poverty, improve the quality of education. We want to ensure that communities will have access to good healthcare services and address the problem of stunting in rural province.
So much so, we will reduce stunting by 50%. We are also committed to advancing equal opportunities for women in Indonesia. Circularity is at the heart of our business, and we will continue to make great strides in resource efficiency. We will reduce solid waste by as much as 80% and source 20% of cellulosic fiber for viscose from recycled textiles.
We know that climate change doesn't recognize any boundaries between developed and developing nations. Accelerated action has to be a joint responsibility, and that means we'll need to collaborate to achieve meaningful change. I know when I look back a decade from now, we have done all that we can to build a better and more sustainable future for all.
Thank Thank you very much. I think we all agree here that there is a breadth of vision and ambition there, and it reflects the need to act with urgency on climate while at the same time contributing to Indonesia's sustainable development. And to understand more about what's behind APRIL 2030, I'm honored to invite one of the key drivers of APRIL 2030, Mr. Anderson Tanoto, RGE Director. Please join me to welcome Mr. Anderson Tanoto to share his insights on this ambitious vision.
Good afternoon, everyone. Selamat siang. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Bapak-bapak dan ibu-ibu, izinkan saya memberikan sambutan dalam bahasa Inggris siang ini. We're honored today to have with us virtually Indonesia's coordinating Minister of Economy, Bapak Airlangga Hartarto. Welcome, Minister, and thank you for joining us. I think Pak Airlangga is right behind there. Everyone can see him. We're also honored today to have Bapak Sekjen Bambang Hedroyono mewakili Ibu Menteri Siti Nurbaya Bakar. Welcome, Pak Sekjen. He's right over there. All our advisors, Ibu Erna Witolar, Pak Bayu Krishnamurti, Mr. Eric Solheim in the back, he's in China right now, and also many of our friends from the industry, welcome. Greetings also to thousands of employees dialing in from different corners of the world, from Kerinci Riau to Singapore, from our sales office in Malaysia to Dubai. Again, a very warm welcome to all of you. We appreciate everyone for taking the time to be with us today in the UN SDG Academy facility, in person or virtually. I hope everyone is staying safe and well. These are unprecedented times for all of us. COVID-19 has hit the world, our nation, and impacted each of our lives individually. Despite these uncertain times, we believe that sustainability cannot take a backseat. Today, we're announcing Vision April 2030 to deliver a positive impact on climate, nature, and people. Let me run you guys through a little bit more of the 4 pillars in greater depth. First, our goal is to be climate positive by implementing science-based solutions to drastically reduce carbon emissions. Second, to enable thriving landscapes by championing conservation as part of our production protection landscape management approach. Third, to enable inclusive progress by empowering our people and communities through transformative initiatives. Last but not least, is to drive sustainable growth in the business through diversification, circularity, and responsible production. Each of these commitments will be delivered through 18 clear and measurable targets. These 18 targets are a combination of 2 years of thorough and detailed work by our operations and sustainability team together with our business leaders. Let me run through a few of the highlights of these measurable targets. We commit to achieve net zero carbon emissions from land use and to source 90% of our meal energy from renewable and clean energy sources. We plan to double down our investment and funding into landscape conservation, target zero net loss of conservation areas, and positive biodiversity gains in our restoration area. We want to eradicate extreme poverty in our communities within 50 kilometers of our operations. That includes Pekanbaru from Kerinci. Champion women empowerment while transforming our business to a trajectory of sustainable growth by increasing material efficiency and circularity in all our processes. We target 80% reduction in solid waste to landfill and 20% of our recycled fiber textile used as feedstock in our viscose production. We're fully aware that announcing pledges are just the beginning, and our goal is to walk the talk and deliver on each of these pledges. As APRIL, we believe that a global multinational company proudly from Indonesia has the capability to chart its path of sustainability on its own accord and motivation. We've learned over the last 25 years that real action at the local level is where we make the difference. We've also shown through our track record in the last 5 years that stable leadership, consistency in implementation, and having a strong organization to see through the execution is what truly counts in the end. We all know that sustainability is not a quarterly exercise. It is about tactful decision-making that enables us to tackle the biggest challenges we face around climate, nature, and sustainable development. Time and time again, I remind our organization, and especially our sustainability and business leadership team, that we want to continue to be known for our actions, for what we deliver, and not just what we say. April 2030 gives us the opportunity to take a wider view of the world around us, the UN SDG goals, the need to contribute to a lower carbon economy and keep lifting people out of poverty. And crucially, we also look at what our stakeholders expect of us. Our more than 10,000 employees, international stakeholders, and most importantly, aligning ourselves to the Sustainable Growth Plan of the government of Indonesia. None of us expected to be announcing these commitments in the midst of a global pandemic. If anything, this pandemic has created more urgency for all of us to act now. We know that no company can tackle the world's biggest challenge alone, and none of our commitments can be enduring unless we bring communities along with us. We're grateful and supportive of Indonesia's national ambitions to address climate change. And we will partner and collaborate with a wide range of parties to help achieve our common goal. Today, I'm pleased to confirm that we have kickstarted this decade of action with a series of very concrete initiatives. First, we're in advanced discussion for a cooperation with the Wildlife Conservation Society, which is WCS, on a comprehensive project for protection and conservation of wildlife in Indonesia, supporting the Indonesian government initiatives in this very important area. This is in addition to the ongoing collaboration we have with Fauna Flora International, a longtime and valued partner in our Riau ecosystem restoration program. Secondly, we've established a tropical peatland science hub at the newly built Eco Research Camp of RER. This has been a long time coming. It's been a 2.5-year project, and I'm glad to say that it's finally completed the month of September. This research center, located at the heart of Kampar Peninsula, will host scientists, academics, and other interested stakeholders to experience restoration in action on the ground. To accelerate our shift to renewable energy, and I was very inspired by my conversation with Mr. Eric Solheim earlier this week, we will be installing 20 megawatt of solar panels in our mill and fiber operations by 2025. This will be one of the largest private sector solar panel installations in Indonesia when it is complete 5 years from now. We've also stretched ourselves to commit to science-based target initiative as part of our commitment as a company, because there's a general lack of definition of what is sustainability. Our goal is to define sustainability through clear, measurable, science-based targets, and we're the first company from the forestry and paper sector, not only in Indonesia, but in the whole of Asia, to commit to the Science-Based Target Initiative. I'm also keenly aware that we have to fulfill our one-for-one commitment in our sustainable forest management policy. This one-for-one commitment targets to conserve 1 hectare of forest for every hectare of plantations. We now have 370,000 hectares of conservation and restoration, which brings us about 80% of this pledge. But this is not enough. And one-for-one remains a strong commitment on our part. As part of April 2030, we're refreshing our commitment by taking a bold decision to start a new approach of conservation funding within our company. For every ton of wood produced from a landscape that we operate in, we're setting aside, through an internal self-tariff system, secured funding for conservation in that landscape. And this would ensure availability and stability of funding of more than $10 million a year for investment in nature. We will continue to seek ways to increase our conservation and restoration footprint, and particularly through partnerships as we move ahead. We know there will be people out there who question how a company like ours, with one of the largest fiber mills and hundreds of thousands of hectares, some of it on peatland, can become climate positive. We're in a unique position to do so precisely because of our presence on the landscape. Our proven ability to ensure production and protection goes hand in hand. Our capacity to protect and restore natural forests at scale, and with the resources and expertise to engage and bring communities along the path of sustainable growth. 10 years from now, I hope to be speaking before you again to account for what we have done and how we have fulfilled our April 2030 commitments. It will be a long and challenging path ahead of us, but many companies, especially in this region, shy away from taking the very first steps. For us, we lean on our courage, and we want to take that very first leap today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson Tanoto, for sharing your vision, April 2030. And now, joining us live on virtual, at this moment, we have the honor to hear from the Coordinating Minister of Economic Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, Minister Airlangga Hartarto, on his message regarding the decade of transformation in Indonesia. Please welcome Minister Airlangga Hartarto.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Yang kami hormati Sekretaris Jenderal Kementerian Lingkungan Hidup dan Kehutanan, Pak Bambang Hendroyono. Yang kami hormati Pak Anderson Tanoto, Direktur Royal Gold Eagle. Yang kami hormati Profesor Panut Mulyono dari Rektor Universitas Gadjah Mada, Ibu Erna Witular, Pak Bayu Krisnamurti, Mr. Eric Solheim, dan Bapak Presiden Direktur Riau Andalan Pulp and Paper. Pertama, tentu merupakan kehormatan bagi saya untuk menyampaikan sambutan dalam acara yang penting ini, dan kedua kita panjatkan puji syukur kehadirat Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala karena kita bisa hadir dalam keadaan sehat tanpa kekurangan apapun. Pada kesempatan ini saya mengucapkan selamat kepada April Group yang pada hari ini melaunching acara peluncuran April 2030, transformasi dan komitmen berkelanjutan mendukung hutan lestari rakyat sejahtera. I would like to appreciate the vision and mission that is announced by Pak Anderson, that April will operate with zero carbon of less land use, as well as maintaining positive carbon going forward, and also the vision that is launched that we are very keen to see in the years forward. Saya juga mengapresiasi bahwa apa yang dilakukan adalah yang berkelanjutan secara nasional dan global sesuai dengan rencana dari RPJMN dan State Sustainable Development Goals. Kerjasama antar stakeholder setidaknya mencakup 3 isu utama, yaitu terkait dengan perubahan iklim, di mana stakeholder diharapkan dapat berperan aktif untuk mendorong pembangunan yang ramah lingkungan. Kemudian juga fokus pada pembangunan rendah karbon. Selanjutnya juga pelestarian lingkungan, di mana kita mengurangi daripada impact daripada logging, perlindungan biodiversity, pengelolaan kawasan konservasi termasuk ekosistem gambut, dan tentu inovasi produk kehutanan yang ramah lingkungan, serta antisipasi pencegahan kebakaran dan lahan. Isu terakhir terkait dengan pemberdayaan masyarakat kehutanan, terutamanya pelibatan masyarakat dalam program perhutanan sosial, termasuk skema pengembangan hutan adat dan hutan desa, guna mendorong kesempatan pemerataan kerja bagi masyarakat, baik di dalam maupun di sekitar hutan, dan ini sejalan dengan upaya pencapaian tujuan yang terkait dalam perhutanan sosial yang sudah masuk dalam Undang-Undang 11 tahun 2020 atau Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja. Hadirin yang berbahagia, visi April 2030 ini dalam bidang lingkungan hidup dan ketahanan bencana serta perubahan iklim Ini sesuai dengan target pemerintah dalam RPJMN 2020-2024, utamanya di pembangunan hutan lestari, baik di kawasan produksi maupun di kawasan konservasi. Pada kesempatan ini, bahwa visi, target, dan 5 prakarsa konkret diharapkan bisa terus dijaga sejalan dengan pengembangan perekonomian di sektor kehutanan. Kinerja baik ini diharapkan bisa di-scale up menjadi model pengelolaan industri kehutanan yang dapat dikembangkan oleh perusahaan swasta dalam industri kehutanan secara berkelanjutan sehingga dapat bersinergi dengan pemerintah dan secara kumulatif mendorong pencapaian target pembangunan ekonomi di Indonesia. Hadirin yang saya hormati, kita ketahui bersama bahwa COVID-19 mendorong tekanan dari seluruh aspek, baik kesehatan maupun ekonomi. Di aspek kesehatan, kita ketahui bahwa Indonesia recovery rate adalah mencapai 84%, lebih tinggi dari rata-rata dunia yang sebesar 69,56%, dan tingkat kematian masih sedikit lebih tinggi, yaitu 3,2%. Dan tentu terus harus kita tekan. Di dalam aspek ekonomi, kita melihat bahwa perekonomian kita sudah mencapai rock bottom di kuartal kedua, dan kita berada dalam tren positif di kuartal ketiga, yaitu pembalikan dari minus 5,32 menjadi minus 3,49, dan kita masih berharap bahwa di kuartal keempat ini bisa mencapai minus 1,6 sampai positif 0,6. Dan kita ketahui menggerak pemerintah melalui anggarannya, melalui budgetnya, bisa mendorong sekitar 9,2%. Kalau ini bisa kita pertahankan di kuartal keempat, maka harapannya adalah kita bisa meriset ekonomi ke arah jalur nol atau positif. Dan di tahun 2021 kita berharap bahwa pertumbuhan kita bisa positif 5%. Nah, tentunya kita melihat bahwa sektor pulp kertas ini kita harapkan bisa mencapai pertumbuhan positif. Momentum pertumbuhan dan pemulihan ekonomi ini harus dijaga, dan pemerintah juga telah mempersiapkan untuk pengadaan vaksin dan juga master plan vaksin, di mana ini sudah dipersiapkan untuk mereka yang di first line of defense, dan juga tentunya kita menyiapkan ada 2 program, yaitu vaksin program, di mana itu diberikan kepada PBI dan ditargetkan pada usia 15-59, dan itu untuk 32 juta di 9 provinsi yang terdampak utama, sedangkan pemerintah juga mempersiapkan vaksin mandiri untuk 72 juta masyarakat, dan juga pemerintah menyiapkan vaksin merah putih dan pengembangan vaksin lain yang juga dipersiapkan dan mampu untuk menangani mereka yang usianya di atas 59 dan juga ada komorbid. Jadi ini sedang dalam persiapan pemerintah. Nah, kita ketahui bersama bahwa dengan disahkannya Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja, kita berharap bahwa pemulihan ekonomi nasional melalui penciptaan lapangan kerja bisa dibuka, dan kita ketahui bersama bahwa Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja ini melakukan transformasi perekonomian, menyelesaikan masalah obesitas dan hiperregulasi, sehingga tentunya penerapan norma standar prosedur dan kriteria, maka itu diharapkan servis pemerintah, baik itu pemerintah pusat, pemerintah daerah, itu seluruhnya akan harmonis. Dan peluncuran target visi April 2030 ini, terutama dengan pelibatan masyarakat dalam program perhutanan sosial, ini mendorong kesempatan kerja bagi masyarakat di sekitar hutan, dan tentunya ini sesuai dengan semangat yang kita usung di dalam Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja. Oleh karena itu, kami berharap bahwa kegiatan ini memberikan dampak positif nyata kepada masyarakat, dan juga di sektor kehutanan dan industri yang berwawasan nilai tambah, dan juga baik untuk lingkungan dan berkelanjutan. Akhirnya kami ucapkan selamat kepada direksi dan seluruh jajarannya, Pak Andersen, yang memiliki semangat di dalam pandemi COVID meluncurkan program April 2030, dan saya berharap nanti kita bisa mendengar progres daripada roadmap April 2030. Demikian, terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih kepada Bapak Menteri Erlangga Hartarto atas apresiasinya untuk inisiatif dari April 2030 dan juga untuk upaya yang terus-menerus demi mempercepat pemulihan ekonomi Indonesia. Sekali lagi kita berikan tepuk tangan yang meriah. Thank you for joining us today, Pak. And then I would like to go to Mr. Anderson again, who will introduce us to Lucita Jasmine, Director for Sustainability and External Communications at APRIL, to share some more about APRIL 2030 commitments and targets.
Thank you. I asked for this extra 10-minute agenda last minute because I want people to see actually the hard work that the team has put in the last 2 years. Many companies go out there with pledges, but many do not know how to do it, right? We try not to do that. We actually have set 18 measurable targets. Actually, we've set our baseline, audited by, I believe, KPMG. The baseline is 2019. And these 18 measurable targets, if we can have 7 minutes of your time. Lucy, please come up and explain the targets a little bit. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. This day has been long awaited by many of us, so we are really glad that you're all here to share in the significance of the occasion. Most of you would know that as a company, we're a huge fan of this quote from Benjamin Franklin: "Well done is better than well said." We prefer having a clear path to delivery before announcing any new commitment. And it's because we believe pledges must always come with a strong, credible framework of accountability and transparency. It takes longer and way more hard work to do it that way, but that is our DNA. So for the past 18 months, our sustainability and operations teams have been working to shape the substance that will transform April 2030 from being a lofty vision statement to something that is real, actionable, and delivers measurable impact on the ground. We started by breaking down the vision into 4 commitment pillars, each one responding to the main imperatives of the 2030 Development Agenda. So as you know, under April 2030, we commit to be climate positive, champion thriving landscapes, enable inclusive progress, and drive sustainable growth. Under each of these commitments, we then proceeded to identify a set of specific, measurable, and stretch targets for each of these pillars. Climate positive is about drastically reducing our carbon emissions through science-based actions. And here we have 4 targets, as you can see on screen, which is actually on our website. And these targets are first bannered by net zero emissions from land use, 25% reduction in product carbon emissions, shifting our energy needs from renewable sources by up to 90% for the mill and 50% for fiber operations. Under thriving landscapes, next please. We commit to champion conservation and investment in nature in production protection landscapes. And here we have 6 targets, including zero net loss of protected areas, gains in biodiversity and ecosystem values, protecting wildlife, particularly from the threat of illegal trade, and advancing tropical peatland science. Now, equally important is the target to produce 50% more fiber from the same plantation footprint. And this is what we mean by intensification and sustainable growth as well. Now, another important target is something that Anderson already mentioned earlier, which is that we're committing to invest $1 for every ton of fiber that is supplied to the mill. And effectively, what this guarantees is an average of $10 million of investment in nature, both for conservation and restoration in our concessions, and also in areas outside of our concessions, through partnerships with other conservation groups. Inclusive progress is about empowering our people and being able to help transform their lives. And here we have 5 targets, foremost of which, as Anderson mentioned, is to eradicate extreme poverty up to 50 kilometers from our mill complex. And this will be supported by targets across health, education, the reduction of stunting by as much as 50% in Riau, and the use, and of course, empowering women by providing equal opportunities both in employment and in upward mobility within our organizations, and also in participation in community initiatives. Sustainable growth is ultimately about ensuring we can continue to underwrite our investments in climate, nature, and people. And here we have 3 targets that anchor our growth on circularity, greater resource efficiency, and use of recycled fiber sources for our viscose fiber. In total, we have 18 measurable, ambitious targets. But we did not stop at this level. With the working groups in our operations, we have also proceeded to define the indicators or the metrics for each of these targets. So, for climate positive, we have 6 performance indicators. Thriving landscapes, we have 10. Inclusive progress, we have the most number, which is about 15. And sustainable growth has 4. All in all, we have 35 performance indicators. And for most of these performance metrics, we have already established the baseline or the starting points using 2019 data. These baselines have already been independently assured by KPMG PRI out of Canada. Now, progress against these indicators will be regularly and independently audited and published to provide stakeholders with transparency and, of course, the ability to hold our feet to the fire if we do not deliver. As you can see, as mentioned, all this information is also available on our APRIL2030 website, and we invite you to visit the site. This is to ensure that there is transparency right at the beginning of this process. Now, all this is also about ensuring that APRIL2030 is not fluff. This is a serious 10-year commitment of our company. And as you can see, it is backed by a comprehensive, rational architecture of commitments, targets, indicators, and baselines. But we know this is just the beginning, and with this launch, the real work of delivery has just been started. So thank you very much again for joining us, and we look forward to future engagements with you as we continue to deliver on APRIL2030.
Thank you, Ibu Lucita Jasmine. Now it's time to get some into details of the APRIL 2030 and also get perspective from the people who have played key roles in moving sustainability forward, both at national and global levels. And then we're going to have a panel discussion on this main agenda, our main agenda today. And now I'm going to invite all our panelists today, but before that, we're going to have a short break. We'll be right back.
The Kampar Peninsula, Sumatra. One of the largest intact peat forests in Southeast Asia. This is a critical ecosystem that breathes life and water into the surrounding landscape. But in the 21st century, nature needs help to survive.
Our biggest threats are illegal logging, unwanted land claims or encroachment, and if that happens, then fire.
That's where Restorasi Ecosystem Riau comes in. A dedicated team of rangers, scientists, and forest managers. Their mission? Restore 150,000 hectares of degraded peatland, an area the size of London, and protect the forest from misuse.
Jangan sampai ada kebakaran. Paling penting di area kita adalah jangan sampai ada api.
Setiap hari sampai habis, bagaimana besok?
The rangers of Riau work in partnership with the fishermen and community that call this home.
Oh, much.
Situ ada hantam buaya itu. Pas kali buaya ini menghantam pengiler di seberang.
Smart, very smart.
And slowly, the forest is revealing its secrets.
If you look at this is a claw mark of sun bear. It's triangular shape. Perhaps this bear is trying to get into the fruit.
Rare and endangered species adapted to this remarkable world. Restorasi Ecosystem Riau is a high-stakes commitment to save a forest.
If we weren't here, this place would be under attack. It would be degrading fast. But because we're here,
Hey! Ranger.
it's not.
This is Frontier Sumatra.
Around the world,
1, 2, 3. Aku mau announcement, nggak dibuka mic-nya gimana?
children have
Test.
been forced to
Please
study
open
at
my
home,
mic.
5,
and borders are closed.
Test.
But our eucalyptus trees continue to grow.
Bapak Ibu hadirin sekalian, kita akan mulai sesi diskusi panelnya. Please be seated. Thank you, Pak Anderson. Okay, we're about to start. Nanti saya akan invite Ibu Erna nemenin Pak Anderson, Pak Bambang Hendroyono lewat ini.
Improving lives for our community and our country.
Test.
The Kampar Peninsula, Sumatra. One of the largest intact peat forests in Southeast Asia. This is a critical ecosystem that breathes life and water into the surrounding landscape.
Okay, now we're going to start our panel discussion. Joining me today on the stage, RGE Director, Mr. Anderson Tanoto once again, and then accompanied by our special guest, former Minister of Human Settlements and Regional Development, and now member of APRIL Stakeholder Advisory Committee, Ibu Erna Witular. Glad to have you here, Ibu. Thank you very much. And then joining us virtually, we welcome the Secretary General, Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Pak Bambang Hendroyono.
Yes, we are welcome.
Ya, terima kasih Pak Bambang sudah bergabung bersama kami pada hari ini. Kita berikan tepuk tangan untuk Pak Bambang.
Terima kasih.
And I'd like to welcome APRIL President Pravin Singhapi in Singapore. Thank you for joining us, Pravin. And we also have former Executive Director of United Nations Environment Program and former Minister of Environment and Development of Norway, Mr. Erik Solheim, joining us from Shanghai, China. Thank you very much. Okay, before we begin, I'd like to inform to all of you that there will be Q&A session at the end, and we're going to give opportunity for the floor to ask questions, and we will discuss it together. And then for those joining us online, you can start submitting your questions right now. Oke, saya mau mulai dulu dari Pak Sekjen, Pak Bambang Hendroyono. Pak Bambang, kita tahu pemerintah Indonesia ini memiliki kebijakan dan strategi untuk pengelolaan hutan dan untuk mendorong keberlanjutan atau sustainability di sektor usaha kehutanan. Mohon Pak Sekjen berkenan memberikan tinjauan ringkas dan bagaimana kaitannya dengan visi APRIL 2030. Pak Sekjen, silakan.
Ya, terima kasih kesempatannya. Dan pertama kali tentunya apresiasi kepada April atas inovasi April 2030. Dan saya tentunya mewakili Menteri LHK sangat betul-betul hari ini dengan arahan Bapak Menko tadi dan juga penjelasan dari Pak Anderson, bahwa sustainability itu menjadi sesuatu yang sangat luar biasa yang sudah kita harapkan, dan dalam kaitan dengan SDGs, pemerintah dalam RPJMN 2020-2024 telah berkomitmen bahwa pembangunan hutan berkelanjutan itu menjadi target yang harus dilaksanakan oleh seluruh stakeholder, dan tentunya pemerintah berharap private sector itu dapat mendukung upaya-upaya pembangunan berkelanjutan yang sudah tertuang dalam RPJMN 2020-2024 dalam hal tentunya komitmen untuk kelestarian, yang dalam hal ini tentunya kita berharap kelestarian lingkungan, kelestarian sosial, dan kelestarian produksi mampu dilakukan oleh private sector untuk menjamin pembangunan hutan berkelanjutan. Dan tadi dari paparan penjelasan Pak Anderson sudah terlihat sekali sinergitas yang nanti diharapkan seluruh kriteria dalam pengelolaan hutan lestari ini dapat terlihat dalam aksi nyatanya. Jadi sekali lagi kebijakan dan strategi pembangunan hutan berkelanjutan telah tertuang dalam RPJMN 2020-2024 dan private sector menjadi peran utama untuk menjamin terselesaikannya masalah kemiskinan, peningkatan pendapatan, terselesaikannya pengangguran, dan terjaminnya hutan yang lestari, dan juga ketersediaan bahan baku untuk mendukung industri, pasar yang memiliki daya saing. Itu semuanya sudah menjadi komitmen pemerintah Indonesia, sehingga April 2030 ini menjadi momentum yang tepat sekali di saat kita semua sedang mensukseskan Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja, yang salah satunya menciptakan lapangan kerja. Ini akan bisa ditunjukkan oleh April 2030. Demikian.
Mungkin Pak Anderson mau menanggapi dulu dari apa tadi yang disampaikan oleh Pak Sekjen.
Pertama yang mengucapkan terima kasih Pak Sekjen atas kesempatan ini. Pak Sekjen secara virtual, padahal hari ini harus fisik, tapi Pak Sekjen ada tugas yang lain juga. Kedukungan KLHK di 5 tahun terakhir ini sangat kita sangat apresiasi Pak, dan especially the last 2 tahun ini kolaborasi dengan KLHK sama grup kita menurut saya perusahaan tanpa dukungan pemerintah tidak ada perusahaan. Dan ini kita sangat bersyukur dan harapan kita langkah ke depan di 4 tahun ke depan dan juga 10 tahun ke depan kita bisa bergerak bersama, bergerak bercepat dan untuk menjalankan misi-misi Bu Menteri dan juga misi-misi pemerintah. Terima kasih.
Iya, bergerak lebih cepat ya. Saya ingin bertanya lagi ke Pak Sekjen, pandangan Bapak Pak keterkaitan antara keberlangsungan usaha dengan kelestarian lingkungan Pak Sekjen.
Iya, ini yang paling penting untuk seluruh stakeholder yang hadir pada hari ini. Bahwa Undang-Undang 41 tahun 99 Kehutanan sebenarnya kita telah tahu persis dalam penjelasannya bahwa kegiatan pemanfaatan hutan menjadi poin utama dalam menyelesaikan semua persoalan, khususnya bagaimana seluruh potensi hasil hutan bisa dikelola secara lestari. Dalam komitmen ini ada dua aspek yang sekarang ini mestinya juga menjadi catatan kita bersama. Pemerintah tentunya dalam hal ini Menteri LHK memberikan pemanfaatan hutan kepada stakeholder dalam bentuk perizinan. Dulu izin usaha, nantinya di Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja adalah perizinan berusaha. Dua aspek yang mesti kita jaga bersama dan terkaitan dengan SDGs ini saya rasa sangat tepat sekali. Bahwa dengan diberikannya izin untuk mengelola usaha pemanfaatan hutan, dalam hal ini hasil hutan kayu, hasil hutan bukan kayu, ataupun jasa lingkungan, kita itu telah meminta kepada dunia usaha atau private sector untuk menjamin kelestarian hutannya. Dan inilah sustainability yang selalu kita terus ingatkan. Dalam hal tentunya kelestarian produksi sudah didahului tadi dengan banyak sekali yang telah dilakukan oleh APRIL. Kemudian yang menyentuh lagi kelestarian sosial, bagaimana penanganan konflik ataupun pemberdayaan masyarakat di dalam kawasan hutan. Dan kita juga tahu bagaimana penanganan karhutla, beberapa contoh-contoh role model yang dilakukan oleh APRIL, membangun desa peduli api atau desa makmur peduli api, itu juga salah satu komitmen kelestarian sosial. Dan juga kelestarian lingkungan. Yang tadi Bang Anderson sampaikan, tentunya pemerintah apresiasi kepada dunia usaha atas kepatuhannya dalam melaksanakan kelestarian lingkungan ini, dan kita semua tahu bahwa penanganan pengendalian karhutla secara terpadu ini dapat ditunjukkan dengan kepatuhannya sektor usaha, khususnya para pengelola izin usaha dalam menjamin kelestarian hasil untuk kelola hutan yang saat ini memang berada di ekosistem gambut, itu telah menunjukkan kepatuhan-kepatuhannya dan kita semua telah melihat hasil-hasil nyata. Jadi dalam hal ini pemerintah ketika meminta dunia usaha untuk melakukan prinsip-prinsip kelestarian tadi sesuai amanat Undang-Undang 41, ini sebaliknya juga pemerintah harus menjamin kepastian usaha dari stakeholder yang telah diberikan amanah untuk mengelola hutan produksi agar bisa lestari dan berkesinambungan untuk visi hutan Indonesia lestari dan masyarakat sejahtera. Nah, kami tentunya juga punya tanggung jawab dalam azas kepastian usaha ini adalah yang pertama tentunya menjamin kepastian hukum atau kepastian kawasan yang dikelolanya. Dan tadi kita lihat bagaimana komitmen untuk menjaga kawasan hutan yang telah diberikan kelolanya, dan kami juga akan terus menjamin kepastian usaha ini ditandai dengan kepastian kawasan, dan tentunya kepastian yang berikutnya adalah kepastian usaha atau keberlangsungan usaha yang ditandai dengan jaminan hukum atas waktu yang diberikan kepada stakeholder dalam mengelola hutannya. Jadi ketika bicara April 2030, ini dapat terlihat bahwa 10 tahun ini kami menjamin keberlangsungan usaha atau kepastian usaha dengan menjamin kepastian kawasannya dan juga jaminan hukum atas konsesi yang diberikan agar dapat tercapai April 2030. Jadi antara keberlangsungan usaha dan kelestarian ini satu mata uang yang tidak bisa terpisahkan. Untuk itu, hubungan antara pemberi izin dan penerima izin ini harus betul-betul dapat terus kita jaga agar semua kebijakan pemerintah, semua regulasi yang telah dikeluarkan itu dapat diimplementasikan, dan sebaliknya kami juga akan sangat apresiasi terhadap teknologi dan pengembangan SDM dan role model yang bisa dijadikan bahan perubahan kebijakan agar sustainability ini dapat kita capai secara bersama-sama. Demikian keterkaitannya.
Iya Pak Sekjen, ini adalah dua hal yang tidak dapat dipisahkan dan pemerintah dengan pelaku usaha bisa berkolaborasi bersama-sama. And now I'd like to go to Eric. Eric, we know that you've been involved in civil society and also in government in setting sustainability goals and also visions. In your opinion, what do you see as the major drivers of sustainability at the moment? And do you think April 2030 responds to this global expectations, Eric? Please unmute. Please unmute yourself. Maybe the organizer can help to unmute Eric.
Okay.
Okay. Loud and clear now.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry for my mistake. But first of all, a big hello to all my friends in Indonesia and Jakarta. I really look forward to having the vaccine so that we can be together for events like this, because this is so exciting. And April 2030 is happening at exactly the right time when public opinion and politics and business globally are aligning for a green development. Think of the fact that in September, President Xi Jinping of China promised that China will be carbon neutral by 2060. It was immediately followed up upon by President Moon of South Korea and then by the Prime Minister of Japan. In India, Prime Minister Modi is fast moving India into being a solar superpower. In Europe, they have the Green New Deal in the European Union, which is now the core and center of European development, not just something artificial at the sidelines. And of course, in the United States of America, Joe Biden was just elected. He will bring US back to the Paris Accord, and he has promised $2 trillion in investment in renewable energies, and that's a huge amount. But while politics is going in the right direction now, also business is stepping up all over the world, and only business can take the solutions to scale. We can't wait just for small events happening by individuals and civil society groups. That's good, but we need the big steps which only business can do, and we see that happening everywhere. During the COVID-19, the big losers everywhere in the world has been the oil service companies. The big winners have been the renewable energy companies. And it was symbolized in the US when Exxon was just kicked out of the US stock exchange and replaced by the green company Salesforce from San Francisco. And all the big tech companies, all the Aprils and Microsofts and Amazons have now made huge green promises. So there is exciting global movement in business as well. That's of course why it makes so much of a difference when the world's biggest paper and pulp company, APRIL, is putting its weight into this development in such a brilliant way as this April 2030 document symbolizes. It's not about public relations. It's about science-based targets. It's not just empty promises, because every single promise can be measured. in 5 years' time or 10 years' time, we can see whether April reached its goals or whether it was lagging behind, but it's measurable for everyone, whether in media or civil society. That's very important. And of course, the promises are encompassing all the three main areas of environment. It's about climate change, the move into renewable energies and emission cuts. It's about protecting nature, as April is doing. It's in the Sumatra conservation area in Riau, but also now supporting wildlife projects and also moving into to peatland conservation studies, and then finally pollution control through recycling. And these are all the three main areas of environment: pollution, climate change, and protection of nature and wildlife, and all are addressed in this document, and there are follow-up practical steps to be taken. So just finally, I'm very optimistic about green development in the world now, because we are in a completely new situation. Historically, what we did was we polluted first, and then we cleaned up after. Destroyed nature first, and then we tried to look into how we could restore what we had first destroyed. Now, for the first time in human history, there's absolutely zero contradiction between ecology and economy. No contradiction between jobs and taking care of Mother Earth. That's, of course, exactly what April 2030 is all about, because it's not about stopping business and protecting the environment that way. It's to the contrary, it's to create more jobs, better business, better economy, more prosperity for Indonesians and many other peoples, but at the same time taking good care of Mother Earth. So we are now moved into an enormous global potential for win-win solutions. What's good for the economy and good for the ecology exactly at the same time. And we'll be able to do that in Indonesia, but of course also globally. So congratulations with this day.
Thank you very much for your support, Eric, and also for your optimism that we can achieve April 2030. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to go to Ibu Erna. Ibu Erna, iya kita tahu Ibu sudah lama sekali menyuarakan agar Indonesia ini menyeimbangkan kepentingan pembangunan dan dengan meningkatkan aspek keberlanjutan dan memenuhi target iklim ya Ibu Erna. You've long been an advocate for Indonesia balancing its development imperative with the need to improve sustainability and also meet climate targets. What is your advice, Ibu, to April about striking this balance? And what role do you see as the stakeholder advisory committee, as AC, playing in ensuring that balance is achieved, Ibu Erna?
Okay, thank you.
It's a very long question.
Very long question.
There are 3 points here, and I wish you're willing to elaborate each of the point.
Sure. First, your statement of long-term advocate for Indonesia, blah, 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 blah. If I can correct it, it's not that long-term. Don't tell people.
How many
it's
years?
Only the last decade. Yeah, it's only since I joined many international multilateral agreements that I became I see more the need for everybody to work together.
So you've been in both sides, right?
I've been mostly of my time, I'm on the other side of private sector and government. Okay, the other side of the fence. Okay, so yeah, at that time, so before I become enlightened from the international area that I joined, as an environment, I was just an ordinary environmentalist that think environment is the most important, and all of us are destroying the environment, yeah, with our waste, with our emission, with our the water use, etc. So each and every one of us needs to give back to the environment. That is one. But then there are the government, the big government, and also the big private sector whom we expected to contribute more because they use more. Yeah? And of course, they don't use it for themselves. Yeah, the government are distributing that. The private sector is using it for the economy growth. But in the beginning, it's not like that. In the beginning, many of the resources were destroyed without the responsibility of returning it. Many of the profit gained from this environmental destruction were just used by the companies at that time. So that's why we are on the other side. And then came this April asking me to be on their side to 2017. Yeah? And I thought, oh my God, what am I doing there? I was, frankly speaking, Lucy, nervous to join that. What's this? I'm entering the lion's den, only to know that for you guys, I am the lion. I didn't know that. I thought I was entering a lion den. So I was afraid of Lucy, and Lucy was afraid of me. So that's very funny, the first years. Right, Praveen? I have lots of arguments with Praveen. We agree to disagree, yeah? Yeah, so, this returning to the nature, is also one of the messages. And I'm happy to know that being in SAC, it is possible to really see that the private sector in this in April, they are seriously restoring the environment. They are damn serious that it's really very, very impressive and very good. In SAC, we have a group of international and national members, and many of them are forest experts, and this we together we see that April is really working very well with their commitment to the sustainable forest. But then my interest is actually not just forest, but anything else outside the forest or inside the forest. So I was following April's journey on SDGs. And in the beginning, they were just like any ordinary companies, wanting to do everything, wanting to touch all the goals and feeling that they have done it. That's it. So we had lots of arguments, and I'm very impressed to see how they become more and more and more focused, and then concentrating their resources more on the things that they are good at it. And so if you ask me what they should do, they are already on the right track. But if, for instance, on the poverty part, instead of giving money, why don't you give them technology for renewable energy? Then they don't need to buy electricity. So those kind of things. Or your huge solar thing can be for the communities also, small scale post harvest industries. So many things. So in short, that's it. Here I am already berapa tahun ya, Jasmine?
3 tahun.
No, 2017. 3 years.
Wonderful years.
3 years and still alive. Alive and kicking.
Maybe I can just comment a little bit. Brianna, thank you for the candid, honest discussion. But when we formed the Stakeholder Advisory Committee, it wasn't about agreements. I always crack a joke in our organization. If everyone agreed in the committee, then we only need one person, right? A committee, the very nature of a committee or a board requires constructive discussions, diversity in views, and disagreements, and seek to understand and seek to be understood. And then we find the right outcome outside. But once we go out of that committee, once the direction is set, It is the company's responsibility to implement and execute. So I think that's been an exciting journey. Maybe what Ibu Edna was talking about was the SDGs. I think when you see the SDG 17 goals, it can be very distracting. A lot of companies think they can do all 17. The reality is, of course, that's not true. And we've gone through a very comprehensive process with PwC to actually streamline, Lucy help me, 3 or 4 core goals? Yes. 4 core goals and 3 catalysts, if I'm not wrong. 3 core and 4 catalyst goals that we're really going to focus on. The core is what we are operating in and where we have impact, but we also have to mitigate. And the catalyst is where it is outside of where we're operating that we play a larger role to be able to really multiply the impact. So our hope is that we're going to use this model and share it publicly with everyone. If all companies can do their part, I think Indonesia will be in a much better place even the next 3 to 5 years.
Amen. Yeah, we hope this can be shared to other companies too. And then I'd like to go to Pravin in Singapore. Pravin, we see many companies set ambitious targets, set ambitious goals, and then some of them fail to meet those targets. As the president of APRIL Group, what gives you the confidence that you'll be able to deliver them on the ground, which it counts, and what do you think are the biggest challenges in getting in there, Pravin?
Good afternoon, everyone. I think it's nice to be here on the launch of our ambitious April 2030 target. It's a hard work of 2 years of our team, sustainability and operational team. And as we can say, the last 2 years, we have already taken a lot of concrete steps to basically implement these targets on the ground. Our operational teams, our operational leadership has already taken many of these targets into their operating plans. And that gives us a lot of hope and confidence that these will get implemented over a period of time nicely. And some of the initiatives where we are already taken some initiatives, we are making progress. For example, our peatland camp is already, scientific peatland, scientific research camp on peatland is already ready. And it'll be good for our national, international scientists and stakeholders and academia to come and see how we are doing the work on ecosystem restoration work. We talked about our solar power energy. We are taking concrete steps in developing or making a large-scale solar power into our plantation area as well as mill area. We are also, in advanced discussion with WCS in cooperation on wildlife protection. At the same time, we are continuing to work with and explore opportunity with various partners and stakeholders to work on conservation and restoration area. So that's something we are already making quite a lot of progress. And if you come back and look at APRIL inside our organization culture, we all, Anderson talked about action, Lucy talked about action. I think we are an action-oriented company. We believe in action on the ground. We always believe that actions are the best thing to do rather than making bold statements. And that gives us a lot of hope and confidence that with our action-oriented philosophy, we should be able to implement these commitments on the ground. And if you also see those 18 targets which Lucy has elaborated, they are very ambitious. They are a stretch target, but we are confident because we will put resources behind these targets to achieve our goals. So in a nutshell, if I summarize, there are 3 reasons for me to be very confident of achieving these goals. And I'm sure our stakeholders will also be confident because of these reasons. Firstly, we have a proven track record in fulfilling our commitment through our SFMP. We have made commitment in SFMP. These are verified and auditable, audited commitments. For example, zero deforestation, no development on forested peatland area, and improving our plantation productivity. Secondly, we are a private sector company, and we always take long-term view. And if April 2030 is also long-term decade view. It's easier for us to take a long-term view, put resources behind these commitments, funding, resources, science, technology, so that we are able to do that. And thirdly, APRIL alone cannot achieve all these targets. We are really looking for cooperations with the partners who can bring in expertise and help us in achieving these targets. So in the end, I would say as a president of the company, sustainability is a very integral part of our business operations. Sustainability and our business operations are not two different areas. We see it as a one, two sides of one coin. And these targets which you have just announced, implementing these targets are fundamentally very, very important for us, and we will do that.
It's real action based on science. Thank you very much, Pravin. And then now I'd like to go to Anderson. Would you like to comment on what Pravin has just said?
No, I think we've said a lot. I think we should open it up to Q&A, but maybe just a few more sentences.
We want to know the why, what's behind the April 2030, and then why now, Anderson? Maybe you can elaborate that before we go to Q&A session.
The why, it's a very important imperative. I think first, in 2015, when we launched our Sustainable Forest Management Policy 2.0, I think we launched that policy under a lot of pressure from external stakeholders. It was good pressure, but it was almost our inability to understand the global movement, and then we were very reactive. Why 2030 is important for us is we want to be proactive, as I addressed in my speech just now. We want to set our targets, engage the stakeholders to give inputs, and really chart our own path of sustainability. I want us to be proud as an Indonesian company to be able to do this, because that's very unique and that's very special. I think Indonesian company has already the maturity, the capability, as well as the vision to chart our own path of sustainability. So we want to do our part, and that's the why. The why now, same question I was asked just now even when I addressed it. We cannot wait anymore. I mean, the global pandemic is we're in the middle of the global pandemic. But the recovery, when it will come quick as well. And when we recover, what kind of growth we want to set ourselves? We can reset this trajectory of growth to a much more sustainable direction. So we need to set the direction moving ahead. We believe the time is now, and we should catch the tailwind of both the political will, both in North America, hopefully in the incoming president, China, many developed countries, Indonesia, our country as well as the will of many private sectors. Most of it is in developed countries. But we hope we're the first, but we're not going to be the last coming from the developing countries to be able to make these pledges.
Okay, and then despite what's been done so far, of course, there are still criticism from some groups that might think you're still not doing enough. How do you respond to this?
You know, I always say we can never do enough. We can never do enough, and we want to do more. And hence, this is why April 2030 is here. But I always say you may not trust us in terms of management, but trust the process. Trust the process. Because what we've done is we've set very clear pillars, 18 very measurable targets, and 30 performance indicators that we will publish very regularly on an annual basis, and you can trust the process. I always say just now, I was just talking to Pak Bayu, we may not achieve everything, but even if we achieve 80% of where we've set ourselves, it's better than not doing anything. So we're going to set stretch targets, continue to push ourselves. We welcome the criticism, but we welcome the criticism constructively so we can act more, do more, and make things happen on the ground.
Okay, doing more. Okay.
There's no such thing as constructive criticism. I think one thing I agree with you, that whatever you're doing, whatever the government is doing, whatever we NGOs are doing, are never good enough, however good. Yeah, expectations are always higher than our ability to reach it. So let's be relaxed and find other ways of doing things that is not too much eating our energy up, yeah. But we give the positive energy of collaborating together, of building partnership, yeah. That's what SDGs is about, yeah. There are always things or work or mission goals that we can work together, yeah, And that's very encouraging. Like April is working a lot with with the local government,
Yes,
empowering them. I think that's not that's much more higher than any other companies are doing, because it's not, you're not doing it for PR, but you really genuinely want them to grow together with you in this region. That is, I think, very special. And also this SDG Academy, even though it's not working yet, there are still so many people that don't know about SDGs, that don't understand SDGs. They thought they have to do everything. They don't know I was in Eastern Indonesia, and they asked me, what if our tujuan is different from that? Because we were having with this desa, Kementerian Desa. Bagaimana kalau tujuan kita berbeda? Saya bilang, kalau tujuan kita sama, kita bukan Indonesia. Kalau tujuan di Tual dan tujuan di Sukabumi sama, maka kita bukan Indonesia. Oh, boleh bareng. See, they thought that SDGs is to be uniform. Itu
bisa beda ya, Bu ya. Oke. Pertanyaan singkat dari saya untuk semua panelis, one brief questions from me to all panelists before we go to Q&A session. Saya mau mulai ke Pak Budi Hendroyono terlebih dahulu. Pak, bagaimana ini agar para pemangku kepentingan internasional dapat memiliki pandangan yang lebih seimbang nih Pak, tentang perubahan positif yang telah dilakukan Indonesia untuk menuju masa depan yang lebih berkelanjutan. Silahkan Pak Bambang Hendroyono, mohon maaf.
Ya, terima kasih. Yang jelas, pemerintah Indonesia dalam hal ini Menteri LHK untuk menginformasikan kepada dunia internasional, ini telah diterbitkan State of Indonesia Forest tahun 2018. Ini merupakan buku untuk pertama kalinya diluncurkan oleh Ibu Menteri, Ibu Siti Nurbaya dalam atau di FAO Committee on Forestry di Roma tahun 2018. Dalam peluncurannya yang paling terpenting bagaimana keberhasilan Indonesia dalam menurunkan laju deforestasi yang telah menjadi langkah-langkah perbaikan selama tentunya periode 5 tahun terakhir, dan juga dalam buku SOIFO ini ada bab yang kami perlihatkan bagaimana kontribusi sektor kehutanan bagi perekonomian nasional, dan tentunya seluruh stakeholder ikut berkontribusi termasuk private sector, karena ini menjadi tugas kita bersama untuk menunjukkan komitmen internasional bahwa Indonesia mampu mengelola hutan tropis, dan tentunya juga kita ingin terus-menerus menunjukkan komitmen ini. Dan saat ini SOIFO sedang dalam updating untuk menambah kembali update yang telah dilakukan sejak 2018 sampai 2020, sedang disusun dan siap dipublikasikan. Harapannya berimbanglah pandangan-pandangan internasional terhadap komitmen pemerintah Indonesia untuk tentunya mendukung sustainability, dan insya Allah ke depan dengan SDGs kita akan sama-sama mengantarkan Indonesia maju tahun 2045, dan pembangunan kehutanan ini akan menjadi salah satu yang paling penting untuk kita wujudkan bersama. Demikian.
Terima kasih Pak Sekjen, itu juga yang jadi harapan kita bersama. And now I'd like to go to Eric. Eric, can you give us the brief insight on how international stakeholders can have like a more balanced view of the positive changes that Indonesia has been making towards a more sustainable future, Eric?
Allow me to be a little bit blunt. You Indonesians are far too modest. Indonesia is the fourth biggest nation in the world. Over the last couple of decades, it has been an immense success story, bringing tens of millions of people out of poverty, providing education to so many people, and also, of course, making a vibrant democracy and nation building at a scale hardly done anywhere else in the world, making a nation of people from Aceh in one end to Papua in the other end. This is an amazing success story, but sorry to say, many people in the world is not aware because you are so modest, you don't speak about it. And we as friends of Indonesia should also speak a lot more about these amazing success stories, which so many other peoples in the world can learn from. And frankly, this also applies to sustainable development. Thanks to good political leadership, first by President SPY, later by President Jokowi, but also with the good ministers and leaders like Ibu Siti, Indonesia has got in place remarkable laws to protect the forest and to protect the peatlands. Not even the most critical NGOs can find any fault, any mistakes in these laws. Then we of course see the practical results of this now coming more and more. There have been a substantial, drastic reduction in the haze, in the fires. In the last fire season have been much less than it was a few years back, which is a very good development. And of course, private sector companies like APRIL, not only APRIL, but APRIL is in the lead, and other Indonesian companies also are making huge gains for the environment now. The forest which APRIL is conserving in Indonesia, in Sumatra, should be seen by the world as one of the prime examples of how a company can act in practical terms to do conservation and to protect wildlife and forest. So to sum up, this is a very good moment in Indonesia. The public opinion is there. People want green change. There has been remarkable good leadership, and the main companies are on board. And that's where you see change everywhere in the world. The government regulate markets, people demand change, and business bring the change to the scale you need. So just allow me this advice to Indonesia. Don't be so modest. Tell people what you're doing, and I will do my very best to help you to bring the message to the world.
Thank you, Eric. We really appreciate it. And now I'd like to go to you, Ibu Erna. Yes, sure. The same question, short answer for all of us, so we can have your perspective as well, Ibu. Brief insight on how internationals.
I thought you said that. Both of us have answered to that.
Okay, we
right?
will go to
because
Pravin now.
I want to not to think too much about it.
Okay, we just skip this question.
Better
Pravin,
use your
say
energy for
about
something more
this,
positive.
Or we just go straight to Q&A session. You want to say something? We just skip this? Okay, directly to Q&A, but we have Mr. Bayu Krishnamurti here, and I'd like to hear from him his thoughts about April 2030 as the head of IPB SDG Network. Pak Bayu, the microphone. Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. If someone would like to say that in April everything is smooth and easy, they are dead wrong. I think what's been happening in April is a struggling situation, faces challenges, difficulties, problems, critics, cynicism. I think they experience all. And the reason they are becoming, putting this vision is because they learn from their mistake. They learn and they come out with an idea. I think it's very rare to see companies come with this kind of ideas. For example, this SDGs Academy. I think this is the first, among the first in the world even, right? When the SDGs come, the first thing first, after they embrace the SDGs, is to support the local government. So they could have also an SDGs plan. But I think, Pak Andersons, even with that kind of experience, I think you now put yourself on, I think, a bigger task. This 4 is beautiful. This 4 is quite remarkable. But I have to warn you that inclusive progress is quite ambitious. 50 kilometers out of the APRIL operation, there will be no extreme poverty. Wow, I think to move and take my family to Palawan, because I'm will certain that I will not be poor there, right? So, if I may ask a question, how you anticipate, especially for the risks and the challenges for the inclusive progress?
Bayu, thank you for the question. Very valid. And I appreciate, I always enjoy speaking to Bayu because he's always very real. Before we make any pledges, we did baselines. So we're working together with Smeru, actually, to set the baselines of the poverty level, extreme poverty. This is below $2 a day in all the villages. Help me, Lucy. 50 kilometers, how many villages?
It's from here to my hometown.
50 kilometers from Pangkalan Kerinci is about 450. Huh?
The total number of villages is 450.
460 villages.
Ones with extreme poverty is 204.
Yeah. So 450 villages, about 50 kilometers. The one that extreme poverty still exists is 204 villages. So we actually checked 10 kilometers, 25 kilometers, and 50 kilometers. And what role can we play within the 50 kilometers? And we realized out of the 204 villages that has extreme poverty, there are actually things that we can do to bring them up and lift them up. So for us, before we committed to anything, we actually had to set the baseline. And we were very clear, okay, there are a few levers that we need to push and pull now in the next 10 years ahead of us to really start bringing them out of the poverty level. Of course, there's also comments about, well, there'll be new population coming in, new settlers coming in. So this is why we're reporting the baseline. We have a baseline that we set 2019. Every 2 years, we'll be doing the audits. We'll have a midline. So even if there are issues with additional population coming in or new settlers, at least we are aware, and we're aware what are the levers that is causing it. So again, as I say, we're not afraid of a challenge. We know what we're getting ourselves into. We set very clear targets. We know what are the levers to push and pull, and we will act on it. And as I say, even if we fail and not achieve it 100%, and we get 80% of the way, it's better than doing nothing.
Shot to the moon, at least you will come to the start.
Yeah.
Interesting discussion, and now we will start answering questions that we receive online. We have one tough question here for Mr. Anderson from Sergio Bafoni. To Mr. Anderson, how can you say you are climate positive when you still operate on peatland?
This is a very good question, and I want to actually really thank you for asking this question, because it's something that's been something off my chest, and I really want to share. First, as a company, let this be crystal clear that we're not saying that peatland plantations has no emissions. As a matter of fact, we're aware of that, and we're measuring it, right? And so we're not running away from the responsibility. First, second, we have to emphasize, however, that leaving a peatland area unmanaged and abandoning a peatland landscape is not the solution, because the emissions will be far greater, the risk of fire will be far greater, and that net, there will be more emissions on unmanaged peatlands than managed peatlands. This is shown through WRI Global Forest Watch fires, that a lot of the fires are occurring a lot more on unmanaged areas and conflict areas than managed areas. So what do we do on the managed plantation areas on the peatland? First, we're investing in the best science possible through eddy covariance flux towers. We have 3 eddy covariance flux towers installed in our peatland plantations, and we're measuring primary data, the emissions, the actual CO2 and methane emissions out of our peatland plantations. And the baseline, we're actually understanding it now. We're going to publish it in the next few years. The emerging data shows that actually the emissions is a little bit less than the existing prevailing science. But again, let the science speak for itself. That's first. Second, we need to then push and pull the levers, as I say. There are 3 levers that we're going to focus on. First, we're going to focus a lot on operations, because that is the first thing that we can do. 1, water management, and 2, nutrition cycling and increasing the speed of our peatland plantation so that we're not leaving the peatland exposed, because that results in more emissions. Second, we cannot afford fires. We cannot afford fires, and any fires that start must be suppressed immediately, because 1 hectare of peatland forest catching on fire is equivalent to 25 years of emissions, if not more. So no fire, fire prevention, and let's not wait for the fires to start and we invest in fire. We should invest in fire and fire prevention before the fires even start. And last but not least, for us, it's about the landscape management overall. So our goal, whatever emissions that's left in our peatland plantations, we have every full intention to mitigate and offset it. The offsetting starts with our first 150,000 hectares restoration project, and we're going to continue to look for other restoration and conservation projects to offset our peatland emissions. So again, we're not running away from this responsibility. We're facing it head on, tackling it head on, and we invite other stakeholders to give us inputs, and we will continue to publish our progress against reduction in emissions in our peatland plantations.
Yes, we can update it on APRIL2030.aprilasia.com on the update. And then let's take questions from the floor. I heard we have Mr. Sudarmo Sumarto, Senior Research Fellow from SMERU. Good afternoon.
So, actually, I have a question for Ibu, my dear friend, Ibu Erna Witular. We've been friends for the last 20 years, I believe. I didn't know that you are family members of April 2030, and I'm very happy to see you around, and also Pak Bayu, my friend. So I'm in a good company, actually, in this situation. So we have been working with April for the last 6 months to help them map these 50 kilometers from the miles, which basically, like what Pak Anderson mentioned, of having extreme zero poverty. So as you know, that SMERU has been doing poverty map for the last 20 years since we first met with the bank when you are still with the Minister of Public Works. So we use the census data, we use the SUSUNAS data and everything to map. So we have been able to map about the characteristic about the status of the poverty rate in these 50 kilometers from the mills. So we found out that about 3%, still about 3%, of poverty, extreme poverty around these 50 kilometers. It's much lower than Riau, about 5%. The national extreme poverty now is about 6%. So, but 3% is about 40,000 individuals living under this very extreme poverty. So it's a very daunting task to make it zero in the next 5 or 10 years from now. So what we have been suggesting to April is to have some intervention from now on, then we can document about what doesn't, and then this can be replicated not only on this Riau plantation, but also in many other places in the world. So my question to you is, actually maybe you have some advice about what kind of intervention that April can actually put it in. You know, I agree with you, you know, just instead of giving just cash, maybe you have to empower them, you know, livelihood type, education quality and things like that. So that's up to April and the consultant working on that. But our job is, you know, the reason why we are interested and willing to participate, you know, SMERU is independent. We are not, you know, money is important, but not everything. Basically, we are interested in doing this because of the genuity of Pak Anderson about knowing about what work doesn't. And he also admitted it's not completely 100% this is the remedy, we don't know yet. This is just, sorry, just 1 second, you know. I remember Esther Duplo, the Nobel laureate, when he was called by Bill Gates and Melinda. Esther, I want you to evaluate my program in Africa. I put a lot of $billion there for this PetNet. And her answer is very simple, so I cannot. Why? Because you already have all of your program and we don't know if this is the good impact is because of the intervention. We don't know. So this April 2030 is willing to work with us from the start, set up a baseline, 2-year intervention. 3 years later, we'll evaluate. We'll give you the numbers, you know. So this is basically very serious for evidence-based.
Well
That's
noted.
it.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. So one more question from the floor. I've heard you want
the question
to
is what intervention
Ibu.
can we do?
You know that already. No charity empowerment and empowerment and empowerment. Yeah. And also the data, because the problem in their region is you work with some set of community, and there will be other community from outside also demanding from the company. So it is very important that the data of the community are strong. That's all.
Good.
The rest is, you know that.
Okay. Do you want to add, Mr.
No, I think that's perfect.
Okay, perfect from Ibu Nawitular. Okay, now one more questions from the floor. I heard we have Mr. Jamie Kartiwa, Chairman of, Chairman of Indonesian Textile Association. Yes.
This very ambitious goal, not easy to achieve, and also not cheap, very costly. I want to know how you will manage to fund this goal.
Thank you, Pak Jamie. The textile industry is in a very difficult situation now, so yeah, very tough situation. And thank God we are diversified, because if I'm only in viscose business, I'll be in trouble, actually. Sorry, jokingly, but I think you know, it's been a very challenging period economically in the last 12 months. And we're very thankful. I was just talking to a few banks a few months ago, that we must be thankful that in our industry, the price is lower, but there's demand. In some industries, whatever price you put, nggak ada demand. You can imagine hospitality, airline industry. It doesn't matter what you price, there's just no demand. So first, we are very thankful in our industry, despite challenging headwinds of economic situation, at a lower price, there's a demand. Second, I look at this investment from medium to long term, especially on the sustainability side. I give you a perfect example. Solar. Solar power there's no payback within 5 years. There's no payback, unfortunately. But there is payback if you stretch it between 8 to 10 years. And solar power does start to pay back within 10 years, especially when you look at the reduction of capex when it's on-grid solar, not off-grid solar. So what we're first attempting is we're going to do 1 megawatt immediately. Actually, the procurement is just out a few weeks ago. And we're going to target 15 megawatt on-grid so that we don't have to buy the battery storage. And that payback is about 8 to 10 years. A little, depending on the energy price. If the oil price goes up, the payback will be better. If the oil price goes down, like this, very low, the payback will be longer. So what we do is to really focus on not only immediate payback, but medium-term paybacks. And we always say this is hub and spoke. We attach this sustainability initiative as part of our core business. So last time they say, oh, sustainability costs money. For me, if you don't do sustainability, your fundamental business is existential crisis, I say. We must be sustainable, then we can do business. So in the textile industry, there's no question. People are consuming 107 million tons of textile every year. We all know this, right? Fast fashion. We're talking about 70% of textile is from polyester base. Nothing wrong with polyester. It's good. It's okay. Polyester is good. But we must find a way to design the textile right from the beginning so it can be more recyclable. It can be also not doing microplastics, for example, when you wash polyester. 25% is cotton. And about 5 to 6% is cellulose, which is viscose and other substitute. So we believe we have an active role to play on the textile industry as an alternative fiber producer who can really champion sustainability. We're now working upstairs, this Jakarta Fashion Hub, and we're working with designers on how to design textile right from the beginning. So people now make textile, but then think of how to recycle later, right? But we should start thinking, how do we design the right textile so that it's easily recyclable after that? That's number one, right? Number two, of course, on the textile side, we have to ask, are we designing the right quality of textile that we're disposing a t-shirt every 4 weeks? Maybe there's something wrong with that, right? I mean, back in the days, you buy a t-shirt, it lasts you for 3 years, right? 3-4 years. Sekarang, you buy something off the shelf, in 3 weeks, there's a big hole. And you cannot use it anymore. So there's fundamental questions as industries we have to ask ourselves. Is a make, use, dispose model the only way? So we're excited to be part of this discussion. We're supporting this. And we don't believe it's, if we're going to go more sustainable, there's less business. Because there are other lines of business to support the sustainability initiatives, and we will continue to do so. So we're thankful we're diversified. I think the viscose price has come up a little bit in the last few months. Hopefully that it will lift the whole textile industry a little better. And I believe, again, this is a 10-year target. And we must be brave, be courageous, and really take extra steps to go the long way.
Okay, due to time constraints, so sorry couldn't answer more questions from the floor as well as...
It's okay.
Okay, one more. Okay. One more question, please. Make it brief, Pak. 1 minute. Thank you very much. Please mention your name, Pak. Yes. Okay.
Okay, my name is Billy. I'm coming from Bogor, Agricultural University. Of course, I'd like to thank for this invitation. It's very nice, and I'm very happy that you're really confident on this target and vision. My concern is about the zero net emission.
Zero rate.
From land use. I think this is very important topic because many people are concerned about this land use in the peatland, especially. But it is also surprising. I mean, a statement from April that in 2030, so we'll try to achieve this zero net emission. And of course, you have some baseline, and you are really that the trend of this baseline is convincing. Okay. Of course, it's not only depend on the climate change, but mostly depend on how you manage the land, how you cultivate the acacia, and the productivity of the acacia. It's very easy to calculate actually because there are also model and also empirical data on this. Only from the measurement. Measurement is very expensive. It actually pointed, not on the whole land. It's very difficult to use this measure data to to integrate for the whole land. But there is some models. It's very easy to calculate and to estimate. And only there are so many data and also publication on this. So it's you need to be very careful in publishing the data. Yeah. Now my simple question, because it depends on how you absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere by your land, by your plant. So what is the mean annual increment? It's very important. From this, it's very easy to judge whether your land is absorb carbon dioxide. And, it's very also disturbing for us.
Okay, Pak.
Because, it depends on how you manage the water table. Yes. If you keep the water table 40 centimeter, I think everybody will wonder about this. We cannot plant, any kind of trees beyond this, within this 40 centimeter. I think it's very important.
Thank you, Pak. Maybe I just take this. The question I remember is what is the mean annual increment of our Acacia crassicarpa and peatland? I was just actually in Kerinci last week, and I was out in the plantations. Our average mean annual increment right now is about 31 to 32 cubic meters per hectare per year. Our average rotation age is about 4.5 to 5 years. So we are growing one of the fastest Crassicarpa species. And we, as you rightly say, so we're looking at the total flux, which is carbon emissions and carbon sequestration. So it is very important for us to balance this two. That's first. Second, on the water management side, we continue to focus on the range of 40 to 60 centimeter as per the government regulation. The reality is there needs to be a range. Because if in Indonesia, when there's no rain, one day the water level drops 1 to 1.5 centimeters because there's evapotranspiration. It's normal. So the range is what we really are trying to work towards. And we continue to spend a lot of time, what we're doing on the water management side. Back in the 3 years ago, we make a decision to make our water management units more refined. So dulu water zone-nya 50 cm. Jadi tiap 50 cm ada water zone beda. Sekarang kita kurangkan ke 25 cm. So every 25 centimeter depth, we have a separate water zones. And this allows us, again, to manage the water in a much more careful manner. And actually, we're also looking at new ways of water veers, water canals, water blockers. So normally, in the traditional way, we use sandbags. Yeah? But sandbags, as everyone knows, is very heavy, very manual, and it takes many man-hours to just put the sandbags up and put the sandbags down. So now we're installing special structure with recycled fiberglass that allows us to drop effectively the water gate, and we can increase it every 10 centimeters in each water gate. So we can move up and move down very quickly. So these are some of the practical technologies that we're implementing. We've made some progress. By no means we're perfect, and we continue to improve in the next coming years ahead of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your response, Pak.
There's an opportunity. Okay, we'll have a discussion right after this, Pak.
Yes, because we have to wrap up. Time's up. So sorry, thank you so much for your participation, Pak. Now it's time for us to conclude today's event. On behalf of APRIL, I'd like to extend my sincere thanks to Minister Airlangga Hartarto, to Pak Sekjen, of course, Secretary General Bambang Hendroyono, former Minister, Ibu Erna Witoelar. Thank you, Ibu, for joining us today. And also, I'd like to extend my gratitude and sincere thanks to Mr. Eric Solheim. Thank you very much for joining us from Shanghai, China, and everyone who joined us here at Tanoto Foundation, SDG Academy, and for you who's joining us online, virtually. Thank you very much for making the time today for this very interesting discussion, and also we witnessed the launch of APRIL 2030. Thank you very much. Stay safe and well, everyone. It's time for us to take
As we enter a decade of decisive action for climate, nature, and people, the global community is coming together to respond to this crucial challenge. And Indonesia is playing a pivotal role. APRIL Group, a leading producer of bio-based renewable products, is taking an active part in this global movement. This is APRIL 2030. APRIL 2030 is
By 2030, we will achieve net zero carbon emissions from all our land use, positive and measurable gains in nature, and zero extreme poverty in our communities, and positioning our business for sustainable growth for the next 10 years.
The four commitments of APRIL 2030 are climate positive, thriving landscapes, inclusive progress, and sustainable growth.
The launch of APRIL 2030 signals our next level of ambition for our sustainable development agenda.
We are very much aware that as a global community, we need to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals while also finding ways to drastically reduce our carbon emissions and to significantly advance the protection of nature.
Our aim for APRIL 2030 is to being part of the global movement for a more sustainable economy.
So what about our actual targets? When it comes to a climate-positive future, over the next 10 years, we will achieve net zero emissions from land use and reduce product carbon emissions intensity by 25%. We are dedicated to conserving and protecting our landscapes. That is why we will invest to achieve positive biodiversity gains and support wildlife protection. And to continue making advances in tropical peatland science, which will promote the responsible management of tropical peatlands.
We want to eliminate extreme poverty, improve the quality of education. We want to ensure that communities will have access to good healthcare services and address the problem of stunting in the province.
So much so, we will reduce stunting by 50%. We are also committed to advancing equal opportunities for women in Indonesia. Circularity is at the heart of our business, and we will continue to make great strides in resource efficiency. We will reduce solid waste by as much as 80% and source 20% of cellulosic fiber for viscose from recycled textiles.
We know that climate change doesn't recognize any boundaries between developed and developing nations. Accelerated action has to be a joint responsibility, and that means we'll need to collaborate to achieve meaningful change. I know when I look back a decade from now, we have done all that we can to build a better and more sustainable future for all.